Guys, today I'm looking at an interesting fixed blade from Steel Will. This is a model 311. It's called a Courage. There's a couple of versions of this. I think there's 4 different styles, 2 with green handles, 2 with black. There's this style, which I'm going to show you in a second, but I also have a picture to show you the other style because it has a totally different grind, different blade shape. But it did come with this nice, thick cardstock here, as well as a really nice box. I don't have it to show you. I've showed you the Steel Will boxes before. They're kind of oversized. Really decorative. They're nice for gift giving, but if you happen to keep your knives in a safe or something like that, it takes up a lot of room. But I want to keep it in the sheath to start off. Very nice leather sheath. It's got a drop down loop, double snap. It has kind of an oriental, style to it. This entire knife is supposed to mimic like a Japanese traditional tanto type defensive blade, and it is a tactical blade. It's really made for defense. Before I take it out, I just want to show you the sheath. What's interesting is this one, the sheath is shaped like a tanto blade. That is the other version, actually has a tanto blade, which again, I'll show you the picture in a second. So you can see the button snaps, they do work great. The far snap here is a little bit stronger, I've noticed. And just opening and closing this, the first side pops out nice and easy, the other side's a little bit of a stronger clip. But here is the knife. So this one, I kind of played around a little bit with this. Didn't really test it. I use air quotes there because for testing purposes, I like to use a knife. Pretty good to get an idea of edge retention, all that kind of stuff. So getting in close on the blade here, you can see the markings on the front. It just says Steel Will and has their logo. On the back here, just has the model name and number, the Courage 311. And our blade steel on here is a 9 CR15 MOV. Very similar to an 8 CR13 MOV, a little bit better. Of course, if you're interested in metallurgy and different types of steels, there are plenty of awesome websites. I may do a series in the future. A lot of people do request it to talk more about different types of steel. But it is a softer steel. It's a cheaper steel. It's a Chinese steel. This knife is made in China. Price tag on this is just under 70 bucks. It's like $67.99 pretty much everywhere you look. Looking closely at the handle here, we do have G10. Again, this was available in black or green. I think the green's pretty cool. There's a tremendous amount of grip on here. You can see the pattern. Again, going for a traditional, Japanese tanto style knife, this is supposed to mimic a wrap. If you didn't already see it, now you do. But the edges here are actually, they're cut like on a 90-degree angle, so they're kind of sharp. Not like uncomfortably sharp, just in that there's a lot of grip here. All right, you can see there's no jimping or thumb ramps or anything like that, so nothing keeps your, thumb from sliding forward, but you do have an awesome grip on this, all right? And it is a little bit on the chunkier side, so it does fill out the hand very nicely. Of course, in reverse grip, if you're going to stab something, it'd be very comfortable. I don't foresee your hand sliding forward even, without gloves or anything like that. Now, there are 2 versions. I like this one a little bit more. You can see there is a compound grind on here, so there's actually 2 different grinds. Towards the tip here, it's ground a little bit leaner or thinner. All right, so you have a thinner edge and a little bit thicker down here, okay, for the majority of the straight edge. It's pretty interesting, to do that. Sometimes with compound edges, they'll make the tip a little bit thicker for more strength. In this case, it's a little bit thinner for more penetration, which is pretty cool. I have to say, the whole compound grind thing is, I don't want to call it a fad, but it's definitely a phase. It's like just something that's popular. A lot of companies doing this, a lot of custom makers doing this. Just multiple different grinds on the same knife. So real quick, here's a picture of the other version of this knife, which is pretty interesting. It's kind of like a double tanto. Instead of having a secondary point, there's a third point. All right, so we have a flat edge here. If I blow this up a little bit better, maybe you can see this. Flat edge here, stops here, changes angle, stops here, changes angle again. So I thought that was really interesting, and I definitely wanted to show it to you. But this one's cool too. I do like that this has a smooth transition. There is no secondary point. So it's more of a traditional Japanese style tanto as opposed to the Americanized. That whole like sharp angles, like how the sheath is, that's definitely an American thing. All right, the Japanese tanto, it did have a nice smooth transition to the point. All right, because it did a second grind on here, it is thinner and can be literally sharper. But yeah, I mean, overall, obviously I love to see a better steel. It's actually an interesting point to make, because some people will say, wow, $70 for that steel choice is like, I'd rather see it for 30 bucks. Sure, I agree there. But the exact same knife with 154 cm, people wouldn't complain for 100 bucks. throw S90B, S35BN, something like that, 150, 200 bucks, and then it's like no big deal. So, I mean, think about what you're actually using this knife for. Very few of you are buying this, going to war, and using it for real self-defense. So, you know, it's not going to be an EDC knife. It's not going to be something you take with you camping. So you have to really consider what you're getting this knife for. Is it for collecting purposes? I mean, it's a functional knife. You could use it for any of those things. It's just not going to excel by design. Once you start using this, of course, the softer edge will need attention and it will need to be sharpened. Having a compound grind on here, excuse me, means you have to basically treat this like two different knives. You're going to sharpen this edge, then you're going to change your angle if you happen to have, you know, an angled system, or even if you're doing it by hand, you have to be conscious that this is a different angle. All right, so sharpening is a little bit harder, but overall, I think it's really cool. It's, I don't want to say innovative, because there's been dozens and dozens and dozens of different, you know, fixed blades that mimicked a Japanese tanto, but they have their own flair. It's their own little spin on it, which is pretty cool. But like I said, I believe it is discontinued. I'm not sure if it's all 4 models, you know, or not. But it's just a knife you don't hear a lot of people talking about. I thought it was pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. So I wanted to bring it to you guys and give you my opinions on it. I like it. I think for $70 or $67.99, which is pretty much what all dealers were selling it for, I think it's reasonable, you know, again, for its purpose. Pretty darn cool if you like, you know, Japanese influenced cutlery. And I do like the sheath. I think the sheath is really cool. Again, they went with a tanto style for, I guess, all 4, just for convenience. So if you do get the tanto shape one, the sheath shape kind of makes sense. I mean, obviously it sits in there just fine. This is what it looks like once it's in the sheath, you know, something like that. So again, there it is in the sheath. It's actually a really nice leather sheath. Simple drop down. There's a drainage hole on the back, if I didn't show that before. But yeah, you know, I kind of got this out of curiosity more than anything. It's not something I can go ahead and use. For testing purposes for this video, I just cut a little bit of paper, sliced paper beautifully. I didn't notice too much of a difference between, you know, the first edge and that you know, very tip where the angle changes, you know, because the assumption is that that's going to be a little bit sharper. But out of the box with the factory edge, the whole edge was perfectly fine to cleanly slice through paper. And I literally cut cardboard like twice. So not a whole lot of use on it. But I just love it. I think it's really cool. I've always kind of gravitated towards Japanese style cutlery. Just another option. So I figured I'd show it to you guys. If you have this knife, let me know why. Why would you buy a knife like this? Again, this is not an EDC knife. It's probably not a knife you're going to carry around town. Probably not the best choice if you're doing work on a ranch. You know what I mean? If you're out hunting. It's a defensive blade. So I think for the most part, unless you're a soldier or, you know, doing some kind of security or police work or something along those lines, I don't see, you know, someone having a need for this. It's more of a want. If you ever use this knife in combat, it would not have to stay sharp for very long to get the job done. All right, it does have a very pointy tip on here. And again, having a shallower grind towards the tip gives you more penetration, but more stability back here with the slightly thicker grind. It's not, you could feel the transition if you hear, well, you can't really hear that, but you could feel it. There's a clear line there, but it's not like super dramatic. It's not like, you know, it's super thick back here and really thin up there. It's a very, you know, slight difference as far as the angles. But just an interesting knife. The other version, even more interesting as far as collections go. If you guys know of another knife out there that has that same double or triple tanto, anyone you want to describe that, let me know. I'm curious. It's the first time I've ever seen it before. But that's it. That's my opinions on this one. This again is the Steel Wheel Courage 311. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you soon.